in, so I went to the agenda.
No, that's not a problem. I should have been paying attention.
Congratulations on new grandchildren.
Oh, thank you. You heard that much then.
I was listening to your conversation, and so and talking about the COVID test. That was interesting. Did you say you would about having to check a box to be symptomatic when you're not? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. So when you go to one of the challenges is you've got to have had a COVID test where the sample was taken within 72 hours, but some of the non-same day tests could take more than 72 hours. So those are worthless. So we had to look at the same day one. So we've had one done previously at Walgreens. And when you go to the website to schedule one, request one, they pre-qualify you. So you check a load of boxes, and we're not symptomatic, and we've not been exposed to somebody.
Right.
And I don't consider that we live in an area of particularly high incidence of COVID. So we check all those boxes honestly, get to the end where it says request a schedule, and there's a little box that you have to check to say you're confirming that you're symptomatic. And it's like, well, I'm not, so I can't lie.
And I just went through that. That's why I was asking, because I have to go down to Massachusetts tomorrow, or actually later today. That's what I was hesitant about scheduling something today.
So we are live.
Oh, good. Okay. Yeah, that's okay. And I can share this later, but I'll share it with you, Mike, because it's interesting.
Yeah, let's stay on at the end.
Yeah.
Okay, so Nick did call me and say he was running a few minutes late. I don't know how much late, so I'm relieved that we've got you on board, Alison. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to have the meeting. So I'll call the meeting to order. I make it at 9:05.
Okay.
I don't think we need to formally do a roll call, but we're just missing Nick. Have you had a chance to read the minutes of the meeting, Alison?
I did, and the only thing I thought worth mentioning is in the section on page 2, the section 213, public hearing and ordinances, that chunk of language at the bottom that I submitted is actually from the Falmouth ordinance. So if you could include that, you just put a header on it that it's, language from the Falmouth ordinance. Otherwise, it sounds like I wrote it.
Oh, notwithstanding section. Okay. Yes, I can do that.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
But other than that, do I have a motion to approve those minutes?
I'll make the motion.
Okay.
I'll second.
All right.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So let's crack on with the tracker. So I've got the tracker, the subcommittee 2 tracker in front of me, and I think we're moving on to section 403. It looks like some of there's 3 of them in connection with 403. One of them looks like a replica of 211. So I think my thought, and it was proposed by Nick. So let's just leave that and we'll chat about that, assuming that he joins us shortly. So following the list, the first part of 403, vacancies, alternate, and timing. And that was a comment made by myself and by Mary Starr. I think that falls under 211 as well. Let me just grab the charter.
211 is
About council.
yeah, that's the council.
Yeah, but I think the language mirrors.
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think if we're happy with 211, then we should similarly, I think, approve 403.
I agree.
When I read it, I don't even think there's any changes really needed to the wording. Do you see it like that, Alison?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I think we, went through the town council version pretty thoroughly. So I think if one mirrors the other, I don't see any reason why it shouldn't.
Okay. So I think my thought here is that we won't take it to full committee.
Agree.
You okay with that, Tody?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Second 403 was actually from you, Alison. Powers and duties, is a 70-day notice adequate? 403 says 60, but 405 has got 70. So I wonder if that meant should be 405, not 403. And there is a comment about 405 from Nick about the 70-day threshold.
I believe the reason they have 10 extra days is because they have to formally give their budget to the town manager. So he can incorporate it into their budget, into the town budget, and so they can present it all at the same time. So that, I believe, is why they have the 10 extra days.
I was going to ask why 70, because it's an unusual number.
Yeah.
I mean, do you know, Tody, whether that seems to be adequate?
The past few years, it seems to have worked. I believe it is, yes.
I mean, I think that being the case, I mean, what are your thoughts, Alison? Did you have a particular concern about raising it to 90?
Well, I guess where I was coming from is the last budget cycle. Hi, Nick.
Hi, everyone. Sorry I'm late.
That's okay. You haven't missed very much. We just covered the next one in 403, which is pretty much identical to what we discussed in 211 for the town. So we just agreed to leave that as is. And we're just discussing the 70-day notice period that you raised in 405, and maybe erroneously I've got down as 403. Tody indicated the extra 10 days from 60 to 70 was in there, so the budget could be taken to the town manager. And certainly I think her feeling is that that's been adequate. And then we just started, Alison just started talking about recent years where I guess there's been multiple votes on the school budget.
Well, and what my point was, the last budget cycle was so very contentious, and I don't, that and not that if you have a contentious budget cycle, it necessarily means you're not going to get the work done, in a timely way. But I just thought, just wondering, not suggesting, but wondering if there was any merit to extending that period of time where the BOE has to submit a budget, but it may not be practical either if they have to submit something so far in advance. Because if you took it to 90 days, that's 3 months before the beginning of the fiscal year. So that's what, July is the beginning of the fiscal year, Tody?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yes.
so that would be June, May. Well, the beginning of April, and they're going to have it submitted by March 31st, right?
Mhm.
So do we want to push that back?
I don't know. I guess at the end of the day, when we look forward to the day that we've got a set of changes that we want to propose to the town council, they're not going to be too thrilled if we've got hundreds of dozens even of relatively, I don't know whether any of them are trivial, but some that maybe are not as significant as some of the other ones. But
I think that one's pretty significant in that 70% of our taxes goes to the schools. So if there is, again, contention like there was last year, and I'm not saying this would happen, it's just a scenario that the, BOE is submitting 70 days in advance and the budget has to be approved by a certain date, then it doesn't give the council the time to try to, work out something, that's, that everybody agrees on in a timely fashion. Then they're under the gun.
You got
Nick, have you
it.
got, sorry, Tony.
Well, the school also meets with the finance committees. Both the school department and the town finance committee, they meet. So they're already working on
Yeah.
the budget, so.
And finance is all council, right? Plus Tom, maybe?
Yes, well, there's
Yeah.
3 members of the council, and I believe it's Betsy Gleistein, John Anderson, and John Clucci are the finance committee members, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they're working already with the Board of Education on the budgets.
Okay.
So there's a lot of, I don't mean to put it this way, but behind the scenes going on.
Yeah.
So by the time their budget is presented to the council, they've already,
It's been massaged.
right.
Yeah. Okay. Nick, what do you think?
I mean, for the purposes of, what we want to recommend to the full committee to consider, does it hurt to say maybe a little more time would help them? And then, I mean, I think it'd be great to hear from Leanne, from the Board of Education on how they view this as well, whether they feel like they're too crunched on time. So, my sentiment was maybe just propose a little extra time in there. And then if somebody says, no, the 70 days is really actually where it should be, then I think we kind of take their advice on it, That would be my thoughts. I mean,
Yeah, that's a great point.
I like that. I mean, I think I would take that as a proposal. And I would second that. And, let's give the full committee, and especially as we've got Leanne as part of the liaison, she might just say, don't worry, we don't need any extra time, blah, blah, blah. And at that point, if we all feel that way, we can just drop it.
Okay.
yeah. So I'll move to make it 90 days.
And I'll second it.
Okay. And everybody in favor?
Aye.
Bye.
Thanks. Okay.
So I think we've covered the 403s and the 405. 802, Mike Wood says, nominations for BOE and town council signatures required. Let's see, 802.
40, oh, never mind. Okay.
So I don't really know what he means, but let me read it. Registered voters of the town shall be nominated for the town council or BOE only by the use of nomination papers in accordance with the laws of the state of Maine, except as otherwise provided in this charter. So I don't know whether he's saying that there should be a minimum quantity of signatures on a nomination. How does it work then, Toady?
Well, in order to put your name on the ballot, you have to have 25 signatures.
Okay.
Yeah,
That seems to be a recurring number.
Mhm.
25's all over the place, I think.
Right. Either 25 or 25%.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
And
So,
you
I
do
mean,
have to be a registered voter in order to sign that, the nomination paper.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I've also seen a theme from Mike where I think he seems to want, and I sort of share that in a way, seems to want lots of references, specific references within the charter, which I wish we could have, but equally I understand, some of the comments from Tom about referencing a document that's out of our control. Although certainly the state of Maine seems to have some document control in there that allows you to see the amendments over time, but they're not easily accessible. I mean, I feel that, given that Toady understands what needs to be done, and there is a a precedence for it, that it seems pretty straightforward to me. I don't know whether anybody's got any counter opinions. Alison?
No, I agree. I think it's pretty straightforward.
Motion to table it.
Yep, I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous there. Another one from Mike on 805. Election officials 10-day calendar. Oh, okay. I think it would be nice to have clarification whether we're talking 10 calendar days or 10 business days.
It's calendar days.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I wonder if we've got that sort of recurring ambiguity throughout the charter that could be, is easily cleaned up. I get the impression that historically we've had the ability to put forward some changes that are not changing the actual definition of the charter without identifying them all individually. Alison, you got a question?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think throughout ordinances and, other town documents, it's kind of referenced the same, and it's implied, I think, that 10 days means 10 calendar days. I've raised that question myself before, that unless it says business days, I think it's just implied that it's calendar days.
Yeah.
I agree.
Like in review of petitions by the clerk, it says within 10 working days, which means business days. So in some, yeah. So where it does not state business or working, it would imply it would be calendar.
Yeah, I think the language, language is fine as presented.
So is that a proposal, Nick?
I'll motion to table it.
You want to second that, Alison? Or,
Second.
yeah.
Yep.
All in favor? Aye.
Hi.
806, 2 versus 3 terms. This was one from one of my neighbors. She was suggesting a maximum of 2 terms and not 3. That's 806.
Was that going to the full committee? I have it marked on my tracker sheet as FC.
Oh, okay.
Term limits, I think term limits was originally supposed to be a
Full committee?
full committee.
Okay.
Okay. I'll update the tracker accordingly. So now we're jumping back to 203, and there's a bunch of questions, observations from Hamill, Handley, and the associates, if you like. 203, create a mission statement for the town council to define duties and responsibilities. Where is 203? Powers and duties. I think it just says the members of the town council shall be and constitute the municipal officers of the town of Scarborough for all purposes required by statute, and except as otherwise herein specified, specifically provided, shall have all the powers and authority given to and perform all duties required of municipal officers under the laws of this state. I think that's 203. I think that's personally, I think that's very wishy-washy. I sort of harbored this notion that our elected officials were meant to represent us. But if they don't know what we want, how can they represent us? And that's how I transitioned into wards, if you like, and a closer relationship with someone who was more aware of what was happening in that particular part of town.
So, yeah, I've got a quick thought on this. You know, I think I know what they're. I think I know what they're after. I think it's probably, you know, some desire for, you know, a way to hold accountable your elected officials to the duties that we're asking them to do. The other part of me, though, says that that's what they campaign on. You know, these are the promises they make to people, and it might not align with anything we write here. But I think the voter ultimately makes that decision whether or not what they're saying they want to do is going to be, you know, aligned with what they want to see. And so I worry about trying to codify something like that. You know, that would be my concern. Is I think the elected, you know, people have to make a case for why they should be there and what they believe they should be doing, and convince the voters of that.
Allison, any thoughts?
Yeah, I kind of agree that it's tricky because, again, you know, you do elect people, you know, seemingly on thinking likewise with them. And Tody will tell you, I show up a lot at council meetings and speak to things that are, I think, in the interests of Higgins Beach. And I say this in all due respect to the council, you know, who's looking at a bigger picture. But, you know, oftentimes, you know, some things might fall on deaf ears because I think, you know, where council is coming from. And again, I say this respectfully, I don't say it critically at all. They may be looking at a bigger picture or what in their mind is for the greater good. So I think it's up to, and I can also appreciate what, you know, the submission we got from Susan Hamill and the group, in that they don't feel that, you know, parts of town like Pine Point and I would say Higgins Beach are, you know, necessarily represented on council. But even if you didn't have wards, you know, you could, you know, effectively vote in people at large from any part of town. And it might, you know, in one election, it might be, say, 4 people from Pine Point if they decided to run, and 3 people from other places in town. And it doesn't necessarily mean that those Pine Point, you know, interests would be met. So I don't know that a mission statement would necessarily make it work. I think, you know, really what's key is for citizens to step up to the plate and you know, bring their ideas to council and, you know, hopefully get some of their points across.
I mean, in the actual document that they put forward to the review committee, they do talk. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 paragraphs of you know, information supporting their request, if you like. You know, and I think that some of those would be addressed by exactly what you just said, and I think Susan Hamill does turn up. You know,
Yes, a lot.
Yeah,
And so does Larry Hartwell.
right.
You know? Yeah. So, you know, there's, you know, you just have to kind of, you know, present your case and hope that you've got somebody on council that might champion, you know, what your interest is. It doesn't mean that it's going to pass because every person on council is 1 vote, you know.
Nick, any concluding thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, just I think what they're asking is probably a little too prescriptive, right? And it's in the sense that if you created a mission statement, I gotta believe it would be so general that I don't know how much meaning it would have. And not only that, if you define the duties and responsibilities of the membership, I think you're taking away some of the freedom of your elected official to kind of act on behalf of the town. Last thing you want to hear when you walk up to a town councilor is, sorry, it's not my job description.
Right.
So that's my fear here, and I think it's well intended. I don't see it working well here. I think you gotta, let the elected officials make their case for why they should be there, and then hold them accountable at the ballot box. So I'll motion to table.
Yeah.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
That's unanimous there, Tody.
Thank you.
212, from Hamel Handley et al. Require all public meetings on the town council and school board and their committees to be made available live on the internet. All meetings to be recorded and made available for 5 years.
I'm sorry, where are you seeing that, Mike? I'm looking at their charter section 2 proposed changes, and I'm not seeing that.
It's on the big tracker. Yeah.
Oh, it's on the big tracker. Okay, because I'm not seeing it on what they submitted.
It's, let me see this section. No, I think it's because I've got 3 sheets that was submitted on February 5th. So there must have been another one prior to that, but it's on my subcommittee 2 tracker.
Okay.
So 212, the town council shall determine its own rules and order of business. It shall keep a written record of its proceedings, and the record shall be open to public inspection. So how have we changed that, Tody, with the advent of Zoom everywhere and YouTube?
Well, all meetings that are held now are via Zoom, with the exception of the town council and the Board of Education. They're hybrid, which some members are present here in chambers and others are on the Zoom cast. So with YouTube being part of it, everything is documented. Those meetings that are being Zoomed, I guess you'd say, we automatically put on YouTube. So that's been a discussion for, I think we discussed this piece too.
We did,
And,
yeah.
Yeah. And I know that the Rules and Policies Committee of the council is also looking at it, but we're not knowing what the changes might be at the state level. I believe there's kind of a wait and see, because I know, I don't know if it's our local delegation might be bringing forward some recommendations to give the municipalities the option of keeping the way we're doing meetings now. And also if they want to hold them in live, when we can do that. So I know that there are council members that are looking into this. So at this point, I mean, what meetings that we do record, we have to keep 5 years anyways. That's by the state requirement. So I don't think you would need anything in the charter. The council rules indicate that their meetings shall be recorded and kept. And I thought we made a recommendation to move forward. I don't have those minutes in front of me right now, but I thought we had already made a recommendation to make meetings be recorded and kept in accordance with. Allison, do you remember?
Yeah, well, I'm not looking at the minutes, but I'm looking at a note that I said that, yes, that's what we were going to do, and that, not to put you on the spot, that you were going to work on language.
And did I not bring something forward?
Oh, maybe you did. I'd have to go back and look at the minutes. Okay.
No, I don't have them right here. I don't have my other laptop with me.
I have a little info on this. So I sit on a legislative for boards and associations in Maine, community associations, on their legislative action committee, and we get updated trackers on policies or bills in the state house that impact this, and one of them is what you're discussing, which is allowing our industry. So I know these are in the works at the state house. The bigger problem is they're not meeting. They've really not been called back into session. So I don't know how long that's going to continue to go, but there's definitely movement around the new way to do things, and allowing this. I think for our purposes, we did discuss this. I think I think we all like the idea. I recall saying that I don't think we want to make it specific to a specific platform, knowing that technology and changes. However, the general idea being some sort of video record, or whether it's I don't want to say the YouTube account, but some sort of online account where video can be stored. And then I don't know if we resolved it, but my one comment was, is 5 years okay? Because I know 10 years from now, there's going to be 9 other people trying to do what we're doing right now, and they may want to look at some of these videos. So I think it was the length of time, and I thought we left it as, I don't know how long a YouTube or somebody else will store your files. I mean, you can usually say the internet's forever, but in reality, in all practical purposes, do you need a paid account to have them there for 5 years or 10 years before they start to scrub it? So I think that's probably a point of research. And just before we try to write the language around it. That's what I recall.
Okay.
So do we put this forward to the full committee, or do we vote to table it now? And I mean, it does raise another question in my mind, and that is, whether we've got any plans to communicate the results of these requests, other than by the fact that they won't be on the ballot as questions for the town to vote on.
Well, on 2-4, the committee voted to put it to the full, they voted yes to send it to the full committee for discussion.
And that was that a different section?
No, it was 2-12.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I was looking at the sheet that you had updated for us, Mike.
Oh, so, yes. Sorry, I completely missed that.
That's okay.
So I guess this should follow that. Does that make sense?
Allison, did you have something?
Yeah, this is kind of digressing to our last conversation about, and the language here just prompts the thinking. With the idea of the council having a mission statement, and I'm not that familiar with the council rules, but I do understand with public comment and that kind of thing, that it's at the discretion of the council versus something that's mandated. So is there, would the council rules perhaps be a place to include some language that requires, public comment or public input, or, however we want to state it?
Well, the council rules, there are procedures in there for how long somebody can talk for a public hearing, as well as comment on an item in the first 30 minutes of the meeting. If it is taken up, if there's that many people to talk, we allow 30 minutes during the meeting.
Yeah, so there's already
there are already rules in place for that.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think I'm going to propose then that this repeat of 212 similarly goes forward to the full committee.
Okay.
Yeah, I think our challenge is we're going to want to write some language surrounding it, and I don't know if maybe we should discuss some guidances. And Mike, I assume that you'll be the lead craftsman on some language here.
Yes.
Maybe try to give you some direction on this, at least for the proposed language, if that would help you.
It would.
My 2 cents is that the town, something along the lines of the town shall maintain video records or recordings of public hearings for a period of no less than 5 years. I it's gonna be a tough one to craft.
I'll kick it off and circulate it and see if we can come up with something that looks reasonable. But I'll start with words along those lines.
I think Alice has got her hand up. Do you see that,
Yeah.
Mike?
So, and also from what I understand from our last discussion, the written record, the state law is 5 years. So do we want to Nick's point, do we feel that we need to make the keeping of the records more stringent than 5 years?
The council records and the, anything to do with the council and the Board of Education, they're kept indefinitely.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And all the other committees have different rules. I think the planning board and the zoning board are also kept indefinitely, as well as the Board of Appeals.
Okay.
Yeah, we have a lot of ledgers in the vault.
Yeah, good. But that's the written record. So with the-
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I don't know if we want to do that. I mean, I would think after a point, I would think after 5 years, somebody might want to go back and review it for historical purposes, but for practical purposes, 5 years is a long time. And, what might have been relevant at one point in time, 5 years from now is, I don't want to say it's a moot point, but you can't affect much change, I don't think, on something that council or committees decided on 5 years ago.
Well, I will tell you, I've been here 26 years and we've not gotten rid of any written records on
Okay.
any committee. Now, the media piece of it, like the videos or audios, those are only kept for like 5 years.
5 years.
But the written record, I've not had, there's been none destroyed since I've been
Okay.
here.
And the written record meaning minutes.
Minutes and
Yeah.
anything that went with those minutes, like if you had an agenda packet and there were items attached, those are all in place.
Right.
That's why we wish we could scan these in because we run out of space.
Right.
Yeah.
Because minutes can be, you don't get the detail.
You don't get the meat.
Yeah, you don't get the meat in the minutes.
Right.
That's the only
Right.
thing. But again, after 5 years, how relevant is something?
Mhm.
I'll just, Nick, I'll say planning board. 5 years from now, if you're deciding on something today and it gets built and it's done, how relevant is the planning board meeting beyond 5 years?
You'd be surprised.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
that's why I'm asking the question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a process, and you learn from mistakes. I'll say that.
I mean, it is interesting in that I scanned the notes from the previous charter meetings to see if any of the things in this subcommittee discussion had been previously discussed, and nothing much there in there at all. So can't even see a recurring theme. That definitely some that are going to full committee, but not at the subcommittee level.
And I do have the DVDs of every meeting of the last charter. Now, whether they work, I don't know.
Or if you have a machine to work them.
Right,
in.
I was going to say, even if I could find a machine.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think, Mike, it's not gonna be an easy task, but maybe just some language saying, to keep visual evidence of the meetings for as long as reasonably possible with use of internet accounts or something so general. I mean, you're right. We'll always have the written record. It'd be nice to keep these for 10 years, but it might not be practical, but doesn't mean we can't try, I suppose.
I'll come up with something and then we'll kick it around. And, I think those terms, in terms of the period and the wording associated with internet accounts, clearly not going to put YouTube in there unless we're talking about something like YouTube.
Right.
But I'm sure we'll find something at the end of the day that everybody's reasonably happy with. So I'll get working on that.
Modern media platforms.
Mhm.
How's that?
There you go.
Be a chip embedded in your head.
Who's that? Who's that?
That is Nala.
Oh,
Sweet.
I got to make my appearance.
Yeah.
Oh, so sweet.
Cute. execute. Did we do a vote on that for it to follow the previous 212?
I'll make a motion to include it with our efforts for the previous vote.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
807, 807.1, require at least 35 days notice for all elections, including special elections and referendums, to allow for appropriate public notice.
Okay. So I can address that. Currently, the state law is 30 days, no less than 30 days. As soon as the election is set, our notices are posted, which is more than 35 days. And they're in different areas of the town. In special elections, that's not always the case. You don't always get the 30-day requirement because of the town. The town can set the time frame for nomination papers and sets the dates of the election, whereas a regular election, our nomination papers are already available in August, say for the November election. So I think personally what we have works well. And the state requires no more than, it has to be done actually 7 days prior. So we actually do it 30 days prior already. And there's a form we have to fill out and keep on file stating that when the date and time the notices were posted.
So do you think the request is more along the lines of codifying the 30 days?
I believe.
I mean, they're suggesting 30.
Yes.
They were suggesting 35. You're saying we already do 30, right?
Well, we do probably more than that because as soon as the elections are noted, we post the notice. So it could be around 35 days or if not more than 35 days. And in some instances, we're not able to do the 30 because of the special elections and how they're set.
I mean, if you read 807 in the charter currently, there's nothing to do with numbers of days at all. It's very simple. The town council shall establish local rules and procedures for the administration of municipal elections. Said rules and procedures shall not be in conflict with state statute. The town council shall certify the results of municipal elections. So there isn't anything in there to change. It looks like they're asking for some further clarification.
Yeah, my take on it is they're asking maybe for an 808, section 808. That's instead of an 807.1, maybe just a section 808 that says, we require 30 days or 35 days for all elections.
I'm looking. Hold on.
So Tody, can you give me an example where you would have to hold something within 30 days? I mean, shorter than a 30-day time frame?
Sure, the school budget.
That's this.
You have to hold, if it fails, you have to hold it, I believe, within 30 days. So as soon as you know it's going to fail, the council meets and either puts it back out the way it is, or they set the date of the election, I believe, at the first reading. So you have less than 30 days on a school budget in some cases. So
should maybe, I mean, because I understand their point and actually support their effort here, which is, 30 days to kind of get a message out is, it's a short time, but you can still at least get something done. Should maybe the language probably set around, require at least 35 days unless it conflicts with state law? I mean,
and I know state law is only 7 days prior.
Right. We can be more
stringent than what
we can be
state law
more
is.
restrictive, but we can't.
Right.
Yeah. So we could require that in 30 days, right?
Yes. But in some cases, you wouldn't be able to do that.
Because of state law?
No, because of like a school budget.
because of their implementation dates.
Mhm.
There's a mechanism though that approves the proposed budget if it doesn't pass on time. Is that correct? If I remember reading that.
If it fails, if the budget fails, I believe it's what the council approved.
So the
Until it
current
goes back to the voters.
current budget, yeah, the current budget would stay the budget until a new budget is passed. Is that what it is?
I believe it's the
New
budget.
fails.
If the new budget fails, I still believe the way it's worded is it's the budget that was approved by the council.
For the previous fiscal year.
I don't think so.
Oh.
I think it's the current budget that was passed by the council.
I got it. Yeah.
It's in here, isn't it? It's in the charter, I think. Yeah, adoption of the budget.
Yeah, but that's the adoption, the school budget validation is state requirement. That's a state requirement. That's why I noticed in the next one, it says require the school budget to be approved by both the town council and Board of Education before absentee ballots are made available. That, the way the state passed their budget referendum requirements, that's not always feasible. And that's not, we're not the only community that has that issue. We have to make ballots available no more than 45 or not less than 30 days prior to an election. So in a lot of cases, and I think in every one with a school budget, we've had absentee ballots go out before the budget's been passed.
Right.
Those ballots can't be returned until the day after the budget's passed by the council. So, and there's no number that goes on that budget, on that question either. The only thing that's posted with that, is when it's approved by the council, is there's a form that has the different categories that the school is looking for their money to be in. And you'll have the school ballot, schools allocation, and then what they've adjusted if it's lower, that the town council, the amount of money that the town council gave them. So, and that's only posted at the polls. I mean, that doesn't even get posted with the warrant. So, and that's state law, that's not local. Allison.
Yeah, I understand the point too, that is being made here, but with the rationale, again, I think that the town is making a really concerted effort to communicate to the public, and that if there are things like the school budget or other items that would be on the referendum, be a referendum vote, then surely I think either through the press or on the town website or, through the town newsletter, the town has gotten pretty good at communicating things that are in the pipeline. So, I'm not sure that requiring a certain date would necessarily make people pay more or less attention.
So Nick, are you thinking that we should take a look at what they've labeled 807.1 and maybe propose it as an 808 and have some reference to timescales in there?
True. So, yeah, I mean, I don't think it's a bad thing to just throw some language out and let's see if the whole committee wants to get into this one. Yeah. But I would also caveat the language with, require at least 30 days notice, unless it conflicts with state law or the practical implementation of, I don't know, I don't want to say the budget, but the practical implementation of, a requirement, an otherwise noted voting requirement or something. I don't know how you phrase that exactly, but hopefully you get the gist of where I'm going with it, which is give Tody and the town a little wiggle room when it comes down to some of the statutory stuff or the quick turnaround times that are needed on the budgets on occasion. but also at least just codify that, yeah, we should be giving people 30 days prior to an election. Does that make sense?
So is it something along the lines of 30 days unless there's a conflict with state law and or conflict with the practical process?
Practical implementation of a stated process in place. Does that make, I don't know if I muddied that up, but I think you get where I'm going with it.
Yes.
Yeah, that's my motion.
Okay.
I'll second.
Are we covering 8071 and 2 with that statement? I think we are, because if it's a practical implementation of a stated process, then
Yeah, I think you are.
Then obviously 807.2 may or may not be practical, but we've covered it.
Yeah, I agree that it covers both of those points.
Okay. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
So I'll draft some words. So we're 9:54. I guess we should probably give some consideration to public comment if there's anybody on.
There is none.
Like, is that all we had left?
No. Actually, I think there's just one left.
I'm happy to wrap up our subcommittee work for, until we get to the specific language voting, I guess.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
So what we've got under section 2 somewhere, again from Hamill, require that every new ordinance be accompanied with a detailed and realistic implementation plan that identifies which town department is responsible for enforcing it and provides an estimate of annual enforcement costs.
Most of our ordinances do address who the enforcement piece is.
I'm sorry, what number is that?
He has it listed under 200.
I found it, yep. These are things that they're suggesting we add. I got it.
Yeah. The question mark on their document that they submitted was add as 216 question mark.
Yeah.
I mean, and I don't know if it's every bill at the State House is accompanied by a fiscal note. I'm not sure if it's everyone is, but a lot of them do have a fiscal note attached to them, so you understand the projected implementation costs of a new policy. So I get where they're coming from on that. As far as the oversight of it, I mean, part of me, that's part of Tom's duties, isn't it, as the town manager?
Mm-hmm. We just developed, well, Tom and Allison, our communications coordinator, has developed a form that we're going to start using with our agenda packets. And in it will be a summary, whether there's a fiscal impact on it, on the budget. And I can forward you what the document is to have a look at. And that's going to be we're going to start using that at the next council meeting. So I think it may address some of their items that they have spoken on. So I'll forward you that document so you can look at it. It will be part of an agenda packet, but it will be there for review. And I don't know if they're looking at wanting it to be something different, and that it, like Nick said, a statement that's attached to each ordinance.
I mean, I would assume that that would be just a natural process associated with anything that might have an operational or financial impact down the road. I mean, I'm a small business owner, so I think, if I was looking at investing in one thing, I'd consider the implications down. I need a new website. Okay, so $5,000 to design and develop it. what's it going to cost me thereafter? I think it would just be any responsible person's part of their process. But I think it'd be good to see the form.
You know, for what it's worth, I think it's a good suggestion. It sounds like we probably do some of it, but I think they want it codified, and I don't think that's a terrible thing. I just wonder if should we offer some flexibility in it though? No. I was rereading it again.
Could it be part, instead of the ordinance, could it be part of the council rules?
I think there's a good place for it under 204. I mean, it's got an enumeration of powers, you know, and it has stuff such as by ordinance create, change, and abolish offices, departments, or agencies. So, I mean, I think there's some, you know, you could slip in a 204.8 or, and just kind of put it into the enumeration of powers, which is, you know, require that ordinances are accompanied by a fiscal note and, or an estimated fiscal cost. The implementation plan, I think I'm struggling with a little bit. And I only say that because I think that's, again, if you get overly prescriptive with this, you know, I feel you have a town manager. The council charges him with certain things, and you ask him to go execute. And whether or not he's doing his job is really in the eyes of the council, right?
Yep. So do you shall between us we try and put some wording in there that might represent a 204.8?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to, I mean, at least on the fiscal note part of it. I don't think it's a bad idea. Allison?
Yeah, I'm trying to get my head wrapped around this and think of an example of what that kind of enforcement idea might be, and just to use the sign ordinance provisions. You know, I think that I'm just going to use this as an example. So if new signage goes up and you know, some kind of attachment is included with the new ordinance that shows what the enforcement cost would be, say that would, you know, really come down to the police department to enforce, just in terms of signage, I would think. And then, you know, but then when it comes down to actually enforcing it, if the police department doesn't feel they have the budget to enforce certain things, then it becomes at their discretion whether or not they've got, you know, they've got staff enough to take care of it. So I don't know how practical adding something like this might be. I'm trying to understand what is wanted here. And if you just kind of, you know, go down the path, I think it becomes discretionary by, I mean, who would enforce something? The police department, maybe the fire department. And, you know, in tight budget cycles, you know, they have to pick and choose what they're going to focus on. So that it mandate that they have to, you know, supply people, or, you know, supply officers to enforce something because the sign ordinance said they had to, you know, that it was part of the sign ordinance.
I mean, I guess a couple of examples that spring to mind would be the plovers and the dogs on the beach, leash laws.
Right.
You know, it does make you wonder how much we've spent on protecting plovers. Not that I have a problem with it, but it would be an interesting at the point that was put forward and approved, to see what the actual estimated cost of enforcement was going to be.
Yeah, I think maybe the way around this one is, because we're talking about new ordinances, right, or changes to ordinances. We would want to see an estimated net impact, fiscal impact.
Maybe Impact
it's
might be the word.
Yeah, and it's a net amount you're really after, right? What's the delta? Are you saving money or are you expending money? So go back to that sign ordinance example. Okay, we already have code enforcement dealing with sign enforcement. Now, if the council says, we're going to restrict how much time it needs to be out there and we're really going to be serious about enforcing this, it might force that department to look at having to hire a part-time staff member.
Right.
So you might end up with a net fiscal impact of an ordinance change reflecting half of FTE. So I think that's worth knowing when they go, when the ordinance change is being proposed and voted on. They at least have, I think, or we have as the public, asked them to at least think the long-term part of this, and you might have to put a time frame on it too, because are we asking for a 1-year impact, a 30-year impact? And I think you also want it to be a best estimate. We can't ask them to write it in concrete. So, Mike, Allison has her hand up.
Allison.
Yeah, and the other thing that's could be kind of a sticky wicket here is just because something has a negative impact doesn't mean it isn't something that should be done. I'll use maybe the plovers aren't a good example, but part of that leash law had to do with the Fish and Wildlife. I believe this kind of before my time here, but from what I understand, there was a possible 5-figure fine from Fish and Wildlife for dogs attacking plovers on the beach. So, part of the leash law was designed to try to assuage that. But I'm trying to think of another example. But from a citizen standpoint, we pay taxes for services, and if something is needed, just because it's got a negative impact on a department's budget, it doesn't necessarily mean it shouldn't be considered if it's needed. If you have to hire somebody and it's that important and it's needed, then, that's what you're paying taxes for.
Yep.
So I'll make a motion. I'm ready to do it. I'll make a motion that we create a 204.8 that requests that ordinance changes, new ordinance, or is it ordinance changes too, guys? I guess I guess say, yeah. I would think it'd be ordinance change. Yeah, I would think any ordinance votes be accompanied by a fiscal impact note for the year, right? Allison, you gonna friendly amendment?
Well, I was going to say I'll second that, and I like the choice of words impact. I think that's better than an estimate.
And it's net. Right? I think that's what we're looking for, right? Net budget impact.
Yeah. I've scribbled the words down, so I'll try and assemble them in an order that sort of makes sense, and I'll circulate that to everybody, and we can see if we can come up with something that we want to put forward in there.
Did we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you.
And all in favor?
Yep.
And just to clean it up, Mike, if you don't mind, I'll make a motion to table their implementation plan aspect of their comment.
Okay.
Kind of a 2-part comment they had there.
Mm-hmm. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mike, we lost your audio.
Am I back?
Yep.
Okay. I think something fell on my mute button.
Okay.
So Nick proposed, second by Allison, and I'm in favor, so.
All right.
Well, I think that's awesome. So we don't need to set the next meeting date or agenda because I think we've covered everything. So I will work on the
I think we do
wording
need to
for-
set one more date, Mike. I think we should see your language and
Okay.
on all of the changes that we're going to recommend, and I think we should vote on all of the specific language we're recommending.
Okay.
And I'm available prior to the 2 week. I know we've been meeting every 2 weeks, but if you were hoping to accelerate this a little, if you wanted to do it next week instead, I can certainly clear out space on the schedule.
Are you thinking next Thursday at 9?
I'm flexible most of next week. I say that today. My line of work changes daily, but
Just so you know, I might not be here, but either Tom or Liam will. My husband's having a knee replacement on Wednesday of next week, so I'm not sure if I'll be picking him up from the hospital the next day or I'll be babysitting. So, but somebody will be there. If I'm doing it from home, one of us will be there.
I mean, I'm certainly good for next Thursday. How about you, Alison?
I can do next Thursday.
I can as well.
Shall we
That's-
stick to that 9 o'clock then?
Yeah,
And it
So
will be
that's-
to review all the recommendations.
Yes, and the wording.
Yes.
Mike, do you think you can circulate that, a couple days in advance?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll need to work on that like now, while some of those words are fresh in my mind, I think. But yes.
And then just as a cleanup, Mike, do you want to leave the 18th meeting in place in case we need it?
I'm happy to do that. I mean, it's sitting there in my calendar, so
Okay.
that's good with me.
Okay. And if I could just make a personal comment, it has been a pleasure working with the two of you. It's been, I think, a very efficient committee, which is very nice. And I think we got through some pretty good stuff.
Yeah, I'm smiling. It's
You
been
beat me
interesting.
to it, Nick. This is really my first experience, venturing into something like this. And, the sub has been a real pleasure and I appreciate the efficiency as well.
Cool.
Now
it's been
the
fun.
real fun begins. We'll get 9 of us in a room and try to sort this out, right?
And also I have to thank Tony for all of her insights because that
Absolutely.
Yeah.
makes
No
such a
problem.
difference. Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
So I'll adjourn the meeting at, I've got 10:15-ish, 10:10.
Second.
All in favor?
Right.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Okay, see
you.
next